Hey man, what up man? What's going on YouTube? Hey, we are here with an NBA best bets video where we're going to go over the whole NBA slate today. We got 6 games. We're going to go game by game talking about some props I may like, some spreads, totals that I'm leaning, some that I may really like. So hear me out, pay attention to what I'm saying because there are going to be some guys that I give out some stats for that, hey, they may crush in a matchup, but maybe I just don't really personally like taking them. So 6 games. Let's go ahead and start it off with this first game on the board. The Minnesota Timberwolves at the Washington Wizards. Minnesota's huge favorites here. Minus 14, total sitting at about 224 in that range. Minnesota, do you trust them? That's really all I got to ask you. Do you trust them? I know they're facing the Wizards. Wizards are a horrible defense. Horrible. In this game, I mean, if you're looking at some players here, Anthony Edwards, he has smacked versus the Wizards, scoring 34 plus in 3 straight versus the Wizards. Today, his point line sitting at about 26, 27 and a half. Hey, last couple games has went under if you're looking at his game most recent game logs, but in a matchup that he usually smacks, could have a very good game. Now, could they be up by 30 going into the fourth quarter where they don't play him much? That's the risk you're playing there. Julius Randle, he's been very up and down this year. Every Wizard or every Minnesota Timberwolves player has a sweet matchup. I mean, against the Wizards, how can you not like their spot here? Rudy Gobert has had monster games versus the Wizards in the past, grabbing 15 plus rebounds in some of those games. Same thing for points, scoring 15 plus points in like three straight, 4 straight versus the Wizards. Just go look at his most recent game logs. It is Rudy Gobert, also another guy. Do you trust him? I mean, I typically don't, but has a sweet matchup today versus the Wizards. Anybody on the Wizards? Nobody I personally like in this game. I mean, do you really want to rock with Jordan Poole? I mean, Corey Kispert, if you're looking off past game logs, has had decent games versus the Timberwolves. But if you really want me to tell you who I think has the best matchups here, who I would be liking, honestly, it'd probably be Anthony Edwards and Rudy Gobert would be my number 1, number 2 there for sure. On the spread there, I mean, 13 and a half, 14. I really can't convince you to try to take the Timberwolves here. Now, they are the clear better team. Recently, they've been winning some games here, but I just can't trust them as this big of a favorite here where it's almost 14, 15 points. So for me, I would recommend staying away from it. It's a stay away for me. My player props, though, Anthony Edwards, Julius Randles, would be the guys I would be leaning their overs on. Next game, we're moving to Detroit Pistons at the New York Knicks. Knicks, about 7, 8 point favorites here. It's sitting at about 7.5. Now, that Pistons team as of late has been sneaky. They have been playing pretty well if you're looking 8-2 in their last 10. I know the Knicks did just play yesterday, absolutely smoked the Bucks. Jalen Brunson went crazy in that game. Somebody to point out that's kind of slumping right now for the Knicks is Mikal Bridges. Last couple games, not very shooting poorly and also not getting up a lot of volume. Do you think he bounces back? Because Mikal Bridges is someone I tell people all the time. At home this year, he has been crushing. Today's point line sitting at about 15 and a half. Do you think he bounces back against a Pistons team? For me, he's kind of on the back burner for me right now. Like, I lean his over for sure because at home he's been crushing this line for points. But it just his shot right now, the shot volume just isn't all the way there over the last couple games. But really, it's really been the last 3 or 4 games he's been kind of slumping. Other than that, he's been crushing this year for the most part. Jalen Brunson had a great game yesterday. He's had some big games versus Cade Cunningham and versus the Pistons in the past. If you're looking at Jalen Brunson assists, it's at 7.5 today at plus odds. Now against the Pistons and at home, he's had some double-digit assist games. For me, I'm just pointing it out because it is at plus odds. I think at plus odds, it's not a bad play there. Cade Cunningham, probably the big name there that you're looking at for the Pistons. He's really the only guy I would like for them just because his volume has been insane last couple games, getting up like 30 shot attempts in some of those games. So if you're looking at somebody you're liking there, I said 30, but about 20 shot attempts. His assists, I mean, he's been having some big games, man. So if you're liking Cade Cunningham there, I mean, he's probably the number 1 I would like there. Jalen Duren, can't trust him against Cat. Cat could get him in foul trouble very easily. Some other Pistons players, Tobias Harris, I don't know about you, but Tobias Harris is someone that I can just never back consistently game over game. And Malik Beasley has been scoring decent, but it's another guy, he's just very streaky, kind of like Mikal Bridges right now. He can go out there and light it up from 3, but if he's not hitting his shots, he's going under. So just kind of, do you prefer those guys tonight? I think there's other better plays out there, in my opinion. The last big name to talk about in that game is Karl-Anthony Towns. His assist today is at 2.5. Now, you would have to lay a little bit of juice at like minus 140, minus 150. But if you're looking at opposing centers versus the Pistons, opposing centers versus the Pistons have been all hitting that line. So if you want to lay a little bit of juice today, I feel like it's not a bad look to be playing devil's advocate here. Karl-Anthony Towns at home hasn't really hit that line of 2.5 assists. And to have to lay minus 140, minus 150, it might not make you feel that great. But just something to point out, opposing centers have been hitting that line a lot versus the Pistons. So something to point out. But third game on the board, we got 6 games. This is the third of 6 here. Golden State Warriors at the Toronto Raptors. Golden State, about 5.5. In my opinion, I gotta lean Golden State if they're going to be halfway healthy here. I know Andrew Wiggins did miss a couple games. I know Kuminga is still out. Brandon Podzinski's still out. Does look like Draymond's going to go. Everything according to reports that I'm reading, Draymond Green will play. Steph's probably going to play. So everyone for the Raptors, everyone for the Warriors seems to be pretty healthy here. Now, Raptors can put up some points. Raptors can put up some points. Last 2 games, 114 points and 126. That was against the Cavs and versus the Pistons. Golden State, over the last 10, 15 games, 20 games, they've been kind of slumping. So I'm not in love with this Warriors team, but I do got to say 5.5 does seem pretty low here because I just think Golden State's the better team. But also, I think there's some better player props in this game. Andrew Wiggins, somebody to point out, going up into Toronto. He is from Canada. He has had good games against the Raptors in the past. Somebody to point out. I would be leaning his over on points there. Even probably PRA, I'd be leaning his over on. Any other Warriors players here? Steph. If you like Steph, he's been very inconsistent this year. I just can't recommend Steph to really anybody. Now that Raptors defense is not very good. Bottom 5 in the NBA easily. So if you like Steph today, not a bad spot. Really my favorite Warriors player here, and this brings us to our first bet here of the day, is Draymond Green over 11.5 RA. Now this line could be potentially being bumped up to 12.5. Would I still play it there? Yeah, I'd probably still play it at 12.5. But obviously, look around at different sports books here. I think 11.5 is the best spot. If you're looking at Draymond Green versus the Raptors, he has smacked this line. Now, you got to think of who plays on the Raptors. Scotty Barnes, Jakob Poeltl, RJ Barrett. A lot of those guys like to get in that right at the rim area. I feel like Tracy Jackson Davis and Draymond Green are going to be the guys that are going to be there getting a lot of boards and stuff. Draymond Green, last couple games versus the Raptors, 18 RA, 14 RA, 14 RA, 22 RA. So he's had big games versus the Raptors. Now, he did just miss a couple games. If you are looking at Draymond Green over this whole year, there have been times where he's missed a game or two. Well, don't worry. When he comes back, he's hitting this line still of RA. So 11.5 RA today for Draymond Green. I like the spot there for him. 12.5, I would still play it there. I would still feel pretty comfortable there, especially if you can get it at plus odds. Would not mind it. But yeah, Draymond Green over there is the first play of the day. To finish talking about some more props in that game, in that Raptors, for that Raptors side, Emmanuel Quickley is somebody to point out. He has had some decent games versus the Warriors in the past. Last 2 games versus the Warriors had double-digit assists and had 5+ rebounds in each of the last 2 versus the Warriors. His RA today is like at 9.5. Even his points today, if he shoots well, he could definitely hit his points too, but Emmanuel Quickley, someone I lean his RA over for. So if you're looking at leans in this game, Emmanuel Quickley over RA would be a lean I would have. Andrew Wiggins over points would be a lean I would have. And then honestly, other than that, if you like RJ Barrett, Scotty Barnes, you know those guys are going to be high volume, high usage guys. If you're liking those guys today, rock with them. But those are just some of the more heavy leans that I had there. We're moving on to the next game. Memphis Grizzlies at the Houston Rockets here. Close spread, -2.5. That's what it's about at here. Total really high at 235. Now, both these defenses are pretty solid. Now, if you're looking at the Grizzlies defense over the last 10 or so games, their defensive rating has been definitely worse than the Rockets. Rockets' net defensive rating over the last 10 games has been amongst the top in the NBA. Grizzlies kind of in that middle to below average area right now. So my lean for this game would be the Rockets. I lean the Rockets. Total at 235. It's such a high total. That Rockets defense is so good that I don't want to lean and under, or I don't want to lean and over, but also Grizzlies play at such a fast pace. If they're scoring, I do think Rockets keep up with them because I think this game's going to be close. So if you think the Grizzlies put up 115-ish, 120 points, then I would have to say I lean the over here because I think the Rockets keep up with them. But also, it's a high total with how these defenses can play from time to time. So I don't love a total in this game. I think I would just be leaning the Rockets. Some props in this game. There are some decent ones now. Jaws had some big games versus the Rockets in the past. Fred VanVleet, other opposing point guard there for the Rockets, had some good games versus Ja and them. So if you're liking those guys, those are some guys that popped off the page to me. Amin Thompson, I know a lot of people like him, but he's just so inconsistent. Like one game he'll get up 4 shot attempts, the next game gets up 12. He'll go out there and grab 16 rebounds. Next game grabs 7. So don't love it. Somebody else to point out here that I lean their over on, or at least I'm going to point out that he has some solid games, is Jalen Green versus the Grizzlies. Jalen Green versus the Grizzlies had some decent scoring games, scoring 20 plus points in a lot of those games. Now his point line today is at 21, 22 and a half. I can't convince you to take an over here just because Jalen Green can go out there and shoot 5 for 18 from the field. He's sometimes needs the volume to hit these high lines like this, especially when his point line this year has sometimes been at 18 and a half, 17 and a half. To see it at 21, 22 and a half is just sore on my eyes because I don't really want to take a Jalen Green prop that high, in my opinion. My favorite prop in this game, and it brings us to our second best bet of the day, is Desmond Bane over 16 and a half points versus the Rockets. Now, very inconsistent Desmond Bane. We need him to shoot well here, but great spots here. Got some stats to back it up. He's hit it 6 of the last 7 versus the Rockets. The one that he missed, he landed on the hook of 16. So can he be very streaky? Yes. I mean, Desmond Bane could go out there and he's another guy that can shoot very poorly. You can say that about every bet that you need an over for. If I need an over, obviously I need him to shoot pretty well. But he hit it 6 of the last 7 versus the Rockets. On the road, he's hit it 79% of games this year. If you know anything about Desmond Bane over the last 2 or 3 years, go look at his shooting splits on the road compared to at home. He shoots better on the road, puts up more points on the road. I don't know what it is. He just doesn't really like playing at Memphis, I guess. But he has hit it 7 straight on the road. So yeah, tough matchup versus the Rockets. But even with Ja in the lineup, even with Ja Morant in the lineup, he's went over this line 4 of the last 5. So I like the spot here for Bane to have a good game versus the Rockets. And that is probably my favorite prop in that game that I really, really like. So that's where my head's at with that game. Lean the Rockets, and Desmond Bane over points is kind of where I'm at with it. Next game, we got 2 more games to go over. San Antonio Spurs versus the LA Lakers. Spurs, about 3.5 point underdogs here. Now, Wemby going up against AD. These guys have shown up every single time they've played against one another. Wemby goes crazy, scoring 20 plus points in every game versus AD. AD scoring 30 plus points in a lot of games, or in like 3 of the last 4 versus Wemby. So both these guys show up in this matchup. Both guys should grab boards. And if I'm not mistaken, both guys have AD and Wemby have both grabbed 10 plus boards in every game against one another. So both these guys should show up to play, man. Tough spread here because the Lakers are a team I just don't trust ever. I tell everybody I just can't trust them. Now, AD, I would expect to have a good game here. If you're looking at his one game or a game that they faced earlier this year, he only scored like 19 points, only shot about 14 times. They did play on a back-to-back, so they played the night prior to playing that game versus the Spurs. He comes out that second half of the back-to-back versus the Spurs, only gets about 14 shots. So I'm saying, hey, neither team's on a back-to-back here. Each team having rest. Each team doesn't play until I think Wednesday. So I think both guys show up to play here. Wemby, AD, I lean both their overs on everything. PRA over. I mean, basically everything for those guys. I think those guys have some good games. LeBron, a guy to point out, his RA versus the Spurs, he's went crazy, grabbing double-digit boards, having some games putting up double-digit assists versus the Spurs. Maybe you like LeBron there. For me, with how Austin Reeves is playing for the Lakers, he's been having very good games, high assist games at home. For me, it's hard for me to want to take. LeBron over on RA right now when Austin Reeves is balling at home. So I think AD and Wemby would be where my head would be at. Now, could the public be all thinking the same thing, wanting to go with AD or Wemby and everybody being on them today? Possibly. I mean, you could be with a lot of the public here. CP3, Chris Paul, a guy I want to point out because against the Lakers, I was really hoping they would have his assist line today at like 7.5. It's at 8.5 at plus odds. It's the same thing as Jalen Brunson that we talked about earlier. Jalen Brunson today at like 7.5 assists at plus odds. Chris Paul today, 8.5 assists at like plus 115 in that same range. Both those guys have decent matchups versus who they're facing. It's just they kind of do have their lines like perfectly spotted, perfectly lined. But they are giving you a little bit of plus odds. So if that plus odds doesn't scare you, I kind of lean both those guys over on their props there, but not some that I'm taking today. Neither of those guys I'm taking today, but just pointing them out because I think they have some solid spots versus who they're facing. But in this game, man, I can't convince you to take the Lakers. I mean, that Spurs defense isn't bad. Lakers are just so inconsistent to me, so I guess I would have to say, hey, I lean the Spurs here. Total at about 222, 223 in that area. Same thing. I mean, I've seen the Lakers this year go out there and put up like 100 to 95, a 95 to 110 type of game. And I think this game's going to be close. So really, I just lean the Spurs. I think it's more of a player prop game, in my opinion. That's where my head's at with it. And that's kind of just, I just can't trust the Lakers. If you can tell how I feel, I just don't trust the Lakers, man. Last game on the board. If you guys have been enjoying this video so far, you like this type of content, man. Like I said, first video on YouTube, we're going to kind of start getting into NBA slates, going game by game. I'll get better with them as the more I do them. I'll talk a little bit slower. I'll kind of start pointing out some guys. We'll get better along the way, man. But this is the first video. If you guys have been enjoying this, drop a follow, drop a sub, drop a like on the video. Whatever you got to do, man, run it up for me because I appreciate you guys tuning in for this video. Miami Heat versus the LA Clippers is the last game on the board. Now, Miami Heat, another team, can you trust them? I feel like this Clippers defense is so good, and they got Kawhi back. So I do lean the Clippers. Now, this line has been moving a lot. This line's at about 6.5. Last night when I looked at this game, it was like at 5. Line opened up at about 5. This line's moving close or quick for the Clippers. Miami Heat, yeah, they have won 3 straight. Look at who they beat. The Portland Trailblazers, garbage. The Utah Jazz, I don't think the Utah Jazz had John Collins, any of those guys. It was literally just Lauri Markkanen and Colin Sexton. They did beat them, but they only beat them by 5 points. I mean, that's still, okay, cool. You beat the Jazz by 5 when they had literally no one playing. Beat the Warriors. That's not a bad win, I guess, at Golden State, but this Heat team has been very up and down this year. Very up and down. I lean the Clippers to win here. Do I lean them to cover? I mean, I'll let you guys decide there. I do think the Clippers win. There's some solid props in this game now because don't sleep on some of these guys today. I mean, Bam Adebayo, talking about some Heat players here. Bam Adebayo has always had good games versus Ivica Zubac in the Clippers. Bam Adebayo may scare you because he's a guy that a lot of people have on their ban list. But I took him last game. He ended up cashing for us on his PRA. I lean his over on PRA again. Now, would I be super confident, like level 10 out of 10 confidence? I don't know because this total is low in this game, but he has absolutely went crazy versus Ivica Zubac and versus the Clippers. So Bam Adebayo, I lean his PRA over. James Harden, a guy to point out, he's had some good 3-point shooting games versus the Heat. Today his 3-point line's at 2.5, but it's juicy, like minus 145, minus 160 in that range. I don't think I'd want to be taking it there, to be honest with you, so it's a stay away. I think they got the line kind of right there, but they're making you pay a lot of juice. Ivica Zubac. Ivica Zubac has been going crazy at home this year now. Ivica Zubac has not had very good games versus Bam Adebayo. He has not had very good games versus Bam Adebayo in the past. But this year, Ivica Zubac's like a different animal. He's been going crazy at home. So I kind of lean his overs just because, hey, his lines aren't the highest because in the past he's went under versus Bam. A lot of back and forth, though. You could go, hey, he hasn't had good games versus Bam, so maybe I'm going to stay away. Or he's been balling at home, so I want to lean his overs. For me, it's a stay away. I would be staying away from it. Just Bam could have a really good game there. My favorite player on the board, and to bring us to our third and last play of the night, of the day for the NBA slate, is Kawhi Leonard over 13.5 points, man. I think this is a steal. Now, yes, this line has been at about 13.5 for his first 2 games that he has played this year. He played the Hawks. His line was about 14.5 when that game started. Ended the game with 12 points. Now, in that game, missed 2 free throws. We all know Kawhi, pretty good free throw shooter. If he hits his free throws, he's actually probably going over 13.5 points there. Next game goes out against the Timberwolves team. Timberwolves pretty solid defense at home. Only scores 8 points. Against the Heat, just unreliable on defense. I mean, their defense it's the Miami Heat, always solid. But I do like Kawhi Leonard here over 13.5 points. I would probably, if it goes up to 14.5, I would probably still lean the over, but I really like it here at 13.5, mainly because Kawhi is probably still going to be on a minutes restriction of about 18 to 25 minutes would be my guess. So it is a riskier play, but I like the spot here. He's going to probably get up 10 to 15 shots, and if you're looking, last game did not go to the free throw line once against the Timberwolves. Game before that, first game back from injury, went up to the free throw line 3 times. Like I said, missed 2 of them. He could go to the free throw line and get half his points today from the free throw line. So I think Kawhi's going to go out there and get 10, 15 shot attempts. As long as he doesn't shoot 30%, he's going over this. So I like his over 13.5 points here. That is basically the last play that I really, really like there on this NBA slate. We got 6 games, 3 plays. Some more plays in the VIP. If you guys are ever interested in joining the VIP, it'll be a link in the description. You guys get the plays early. You might get them posted the night prior. You'll get an email sent right to you guys. You'll get locked in on the plays. And if that doesn't interest you, join the free Discord, man. The Discord is completely free. You can get in there and chop it up amongst the community, give out some slips that you're liking, talk amongst you guys each other about, or just about any sport you guys are liking, NBA, NFL, whatever you're kind of feeling, man. But first video in the books, 6 NBA games, 3 best bets. Let's have a dang good day, man, and let's cash out on those 3. I'll see you guys back here tomorrow. Let's go.